I want to preface this by saying that I'm not touching either of my YouTube properties, but indirectly I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. I got online as far as owning a property back in 2002. In 2001, I registered my business with New York State. I wanted to call it Mitchell and Associates, but the person who was there said, "Do you have any associates?" I said, "No." And she said, "Then you can't use that name." So I came up with TT Mitchell Consulting because that's all I could think of at the time. And it has stuck with me, so there it is. And no, I ain't going to tell you what TT stands for. So now I have a business. And then a friend of mine early in 2002, he actually created the template for me to have a business website. And it only had 2 pages at the time, but at least now I was online. I could probably do something as far as marketing myself and getting the word out there. So I had that, and then I learned how to code, which was probably dangerous at the time, but there you go. And so I added a whole bunch of pages to it. Not as many as I have now, but still I added more pages to it, and every page was a different color because I was fascinated by creating colors. And then I asked people that I knew, okay, what do you think of my website? And every one of them said the same thing or asked the same question. Why do you have all those colors on the website? I don't know. So I decided to change all the colors to one specific color. My favorite color is red. I think you can look at my wall and that's easy to tell. Yes, I'm wearing an orange shirt, but that's Syracuse. That doesn't count. So I decided to go with a blue color, and it's the same color today. So that's the original color. It's set. And then I had to start marketing and trying to get some kind of business, and it struggled. I struggled for a little while, and then I got a nice gig for about 6 months working for a hospital down in New Jersey. And I made a bunch of money in 6 months, and I said, wow, I kind of like how that went. So now I'm home. That was in 2004. It's early in 2005, and I decide that I want to add a blog to my website because I wanted to be able to help to market my business by talking about the areas of business that I was into. The main business was healthcare, but I also was doing leadership training and diversity training and a whole lot of other things. And I also had done some speaking engagements. I just started doing speaking engagements. So, this is kind of cool. So I do that. I create my first blog. I put out my first article February 2005. And blogging was just starting to be kind of a big deal at the time. So I've always been a writer, not just words, music, and other types of writing. So I'm going along pretty well. It was recommended by a different friend of mine who I trusted her at the time, and I stuck with the company that she was with. And I knew nothing about hosting in general, except for the fact that it had been recommended that wherever I buy my domain names from, do not host my site on there. I bought my domain name from GoDaddy because back then it was the only name I knew. I don't even know if there was anyone else who was selling those things. But I hosted with a different company. I do not remember the name. And I'm glad because I had that blog for a year, the website there for a year. And then sometime in 2006, the hosting company blew up, shut down immediately. First they crashed, and then that was it. They never sent out any notices to anybody. I reached out to my friend who had recommended, and she says, yeah, they just shut down. No one's talking to anybody. I said, oh, goodness. Well, what do? Do I go to GoDaddy? She says, nope. She says, I'm looking at 3 other things, and she tells me who they are. And so I checked those out, and the one I decided to go with at the time was 1&1. 1&1 is now Ionos. I'll be coming back to them also. Anyway, the price was right. I did it. They put everything back on there. But I had to basically move all my articles back independently. So there was something that's called the Wayback Machine. Now it's called the Internet Database. But back there, actually, it's probably still called the Wayback Machine, which is, reference to the old Scooby-Doo from the 70s. So I had to decide individually which articles I was going to bring. And I left some still over there, but I brought all the articles over that I wanted, and I had to repost them, and I got a chance to edit them if I wanted to, and I put the original dates on there. And at least I got my content back, because that would have been problematic. Anyway, I do that, and now I've got other little mini gigs to do, but when I don't have those gigs, now I have a place where I can write my stuff to try to let people know that I have some authority knowledge in all these different areas, and I can share that with you. And it turned out that by doing that and having it attached to my business website, my online presence was really strong. Even now, my main keywords for what I do are still ranked in the top 5 if you don't count business websites like Monster and Career Builder and all. If you don't count those, because, you know, they're not really looking to hire. They just got jobs that they mention. Sometimes they mention jobs that are connected to that, but they're not talking about what I was advertising for at the time. But still, I have this presence. So I'm still in the top 5. That goes way back to 2006. You know, that's pretty good. So then I'm doing the writing on there, and I said, you know what? I've got other things I want to talk about, other things I want to do. So I decided to try to build a commerce site. I called it Services and Stuff. And I was going to promote services and stuff. Services basically was if anybody wanted to have a link to their website, I would put a link on my site for free. No one had to pay for anything. I would put a link on there, and then they had the choice of either deciding that they'd like to have a second page where they could just, you know, put down a little bit of something about what their business is about, and then go to their site, or it could have people just click on the link and go to their own website. But that went pretty well. And then I had discovered affiliate marketing. So it was Commission Junction, where I found a whole lot of different advertisers, different companies that were connected to them. And so I put a lot of those things up. And I also had the ability of taking certain products and putting them on pages that talked about those products. For instance, there was an online site that basically sold movies. And so what I did is I created a movies. Actually, I called TV and movies, because they were starting to put old TV shows into DVDs, and you could buy like a full package of them. So I had that, and I had a whole bunch of other things. That was intensive, but at least it was connected to everything else. Obviously, my business was linked on there as well. And that was fun, but it was really intensive. And I had to work all the time because there were always links that were breaking and all this other kind of stuff, but I had that. And then I decided at a certain time, I want to have a blog where I can pretty much write about anything I want to. It's not going to be like connected to business in the same way, although my business, you know, any of my products, prod pages, web pages were all going to be connected to each other. And I called that I'm Just Sharing. And I'm Just Sharing was basically a way for me to talk about anything I wanted to. If I wanted to talk about different business things, I could. If I wanted to talk about politics, I could. Wanted to talk about TV, I could. And I enjoyed that. As a matter of fact, I enjoyed that so much that for the first 3 full years, I wrote 300 articles a year. So I was doing well. Then I just got into this thing where I love blogging so much, I came up with others. I created a website called Reviews of Everything. And I was writing these reviews. And some of them were, you know, maybe 500, 600 words. Some of them were almost 2,000 words. But it was reviews about almost anything. And some of these were things that most people might not have ever heard of. For instance, I did a review on a book talking about a guy named Pimpin' Ken, which I still have somewhere in this house. And it was just another thing that I did. I did a book about the book. I created a website about smoking, anti-smoking. And I did that because I had started writing articles for other people. I wrote a bunch of articles for this one guy. I sent him a couple of them. He says, well, I like one. I'm not sure about the other one, but I'd like to see them all first. And I said, no. This is one of those kind of things. You asked for a whole bunch of articles. I just sent you one so you could see what I did. Either you buy them all or I'm keeping all of them. He decided he didn't want to just buy them all, even though that's what he had contracted for. So I created a smoking site. I already have 20 articles that I get to start with, so I'm good. So I've got that one. Then I decided to create a site where I could give medical information to people. Not like breaking your arm or anything like that, but talking about insurances. So I created a site, and right now I can't remember what that site was called, but that's okay. And it had a Medicare page, Medicaid, Blue Cross, whatever. All these different insurances. I put it all on there. Now, these days, a website like that is not going to go. It's, no search engine is going to basically hook up with that because they're going to say, that's like a blank website. You're trying to just get people there. You're not really offering anything. Well, in my mind, I thought it was offering things, but I also had added specific articles on there. So I had about 15 to 20 different articles. Some of them were long, some of them were, short, but I was addressing certain things that had to do with medical billing because that's what the site was mainly about. Different medical billing, things that you could do if you weren't getting paid, whatever. And I had something on there where if you were a patient, you could contact me and you didn't have to pay to ask a question. Now, I would, you ask a question, I will answer that question. If you want to ask more questions, then you have to pay. But I didn't just give you a one-line answer. I gave you a good answer the first time around. So if you needed more than that, now you got to pay for it. So I had that, and that was also connected to my main website. So I'm good to go with that one. Feeling pretty good. And then I decided, you know what? I live in the Syracuse area. I want to write about local stuff. So I created a site called Syracuse Wiki. So I had that. Then I just kept creating things. I had a financial blog because I knew a lot about finances. And during that time was when the economy was tanking. It was the last year of Bush Jr. at the time. Yeah, I called him that. And it was just so much to talk about. Banks closing and how the stock market had fallen all the way down, really, really low. And I had a lot to talk about. And I could link it to other properties every once in a while. And I could link it to products. So, like I said, I had this marketing thing. And then it got to a point, y'all know where this is going. I just had way too much stuff to try to keep up with. So I had to decide, okay, it's time to back some of this down a little bit. I started off when I was talking about my financial site by taking paid articles. And it turns out that probably 90% of the articles I got were people from other countries. And I told them that you have to make sure that this is pertinent to what also goes on in the United States. Otherwise, it has to change. And I read every single thing. And I said, no, you can't. This language doesn't work because that's not English. That's not American English. That doesn't work. And some of the things that they were promoting were stuff that we had in the United States, but it wasn't the same. And I would tell him, no, you've got to redo that. And it was just overwhelming with that. I was still trying to market my business. Everything was kind of just convoluted. So I had to make a decision. So I got rid of services and stuff because that was just way too much to keep, maintenance on. I got rid of the smoking site because after those initial articles and a few others, I didn't know what to write on. I had another site where, the one I was talking about, medical billing answers, where I was answering those kind of things. I decided to create a blog on that one. And initially I was having fun with that one, but then it was just way too much. So I said, you know what? I'm going to just pause that. So I did. I paused that. I paused the other things, and then I kept them, whatever. I sold some of those old domains. I kept some domains. I had the money to pay for it. So there you go. Then I started traveling again, and that was grueling because I was flying down to Memphis and back to Syracuse for a year and a half. And if you don't travel that much, you don't start to realize that that is taxing. And initially I thought how cool it is because I can stay in any hotel I want to and it's being paid for by everyone else. But I basically ended up staying in Homewood Suites because they were nice, but it was tiring. I was just exhausted. So I had to get rid of a few other properties. And by the time I came home, I was ready to go with only a few websites. One is my main business website, which meant my main business blog. I'm just sharing Syracuse Wiki. I've got a couple other properties, but I'm not doing anything with those. I'm just holding on to them because I think I'm going to do something with them. Eventually, one of those other sites, I decided, no, that's got to go. No sense in keep paying for that one. But I had an idea to create a full training site for medical billing. I had been on LinkedIn and I had talked to a few people and they said, oh, it would be lovely. It would be great if we had something like that we could go to. So I started off by writing articles. I had some articles already written for my business website and I said, you know what, I could take it off of there, put it on this website, and then I'll just create a whole bunch of other content. So I did that. I needed some help, not with the content, but I wanted it to be a membership site. Basically, that says that people will pay a monthly fee to be able to access the website. If they continue paying that monthly fee, they will always have access to everything else. And if you stay for 2 years, then it will always be free from that point on. You don't have to worry about anything. And that took a long time to build. I had another friend of mine who let me have one of the themes. A theme, for those of you who don't know, if you look at a blog and you see what it looks like, that's called a theme. There are tens of thousands of themes, but all themes don't work the same. So he gave me one because that's the kind of thing he was doing. I did that. Then I had to find a company to use as an autoresponder. So that means if you sign up for, let's say you sign up for a weekly article from somebody, you get it, but it's not a person who's sitting at home saying, okay, now I'm going to type all these email addresses in, which I had actually done back in the early 2000s because we didn't have autoresponders. And that was messy and time. Like I said, I had a lot going on. So it took a while to figure out who I was going to go with. Then it took a while to do the coding because I didn't understand the coding and I didn't know anybody else who was using that company. But it was free for a while as long as I was under so many subscribers. Fine, that works out well. So I do that. I start the promotion on my other YouTube channel. I promoted it on there. I promoted it on LinkedIn. I actually gave free memberships to 3 or 4 people because I wanted them to check out the website, let me know what they thought. None of them ever came to the website. I know that because it had a tracker on there that would tell me how many people were coming. None of them ever came. So after I wrote about 33, 34 articles, I paused. And I was tired. I had to take care of my mother. Mom had dementia. My ex decided we're going to be exes. So now it's just me and Mom and a couple of people who I was able to pay some money to so they could sit with her for a couple of hours, some days a week so that I could have some time off to myself. And then it was just like, oh my God, I am just so tired. But I still kept all of my properties that I still had. I kept the other 3 and this one. Then the finances started to change. So I said, well, I've got to do something. because I had paid way in advance for all the domain names. They were all coming up for renewal at the same time. So now you got to make a decision. What am I going to do? And I decided to basically shut one down totally. Said, no, I'm done with that one. And this is the one of the medical billing training. That one cost me a lot of time. I can't say it cost me a lot of money, but it felt like I was a major loser on that. I thought that at the least, I would average at least $2,000 a year. At least. Actually, I thought it would be more. I thought, you know what? I'll get at least 5 people. They will pay this amount on a monthly basis. Even if they only stay 6 months, you know, it will generate some income. And it did. That was depressing. But now I've got to pay for all the domain names that I have. And 1&1 had become Ionos. And I didn't know they were in another country until probably 2018, 2019. I just assumed it was an American company. They weren't. And their fees are high. The hosting, when you put it all together, it wasn't overly higher than any other, hosting company. But SSL certificates, you get 1 free certificate at 1&1. You can buy a certificate from another company, but you can't use it with 1&1. Other hosts allow that, but they didn't allow it. So it's like, oh my goodness, I don't have that. And I had closed a couple of credit cards. I almost didn't know that. I had forgotten that I'd given them that the year earlier. So they tried to, immediately charge that. It got bounced. We had a conversation. I said, no, we're not putting it on that. So I paid for at least one more, a period of hosting time. And that was, for a year. That actually comes up at the beginning of August. And I'm going to say I have to figure out what I'm going to do with that, but that's not quite accurate. So I've got that. Then I get the notification from GoDaddy. And for my 4 sites that I still own, now they're all coming up. 3 of them, 3 months in a row, and then the 4th one comes up in December. So I've got to make a decision. This comes to what I was talking about earlier. Are you ready to make a decision? So my decision was that I'm going to keep one of my websites using the free SSL certificate, and obviously it's going to be the business website. So the business website is safe. There that is. It's covered. But the other 2 websites that I decided to keep the domain for, no SSL certificate. And what I didn't know was that if you don't have an SSL certificate, then Firefox and Chrome and Brave, and I don't know who else exists, will not allow people to get beyond the home page. So all the articles I have on those sites, nobody can access. Also, I can't get into those to do any maintenance on the inside because, once again, has no SSL certificate. The web doesn't know who I am as far as, but it's my site. I pay for that. Nah, they don't know. But I had to make that decision. So right now I only have the website, the main website, the business website, which has the business blog where I have an SSL certificate. I'm going to have to decide, am I going to go ahead and pay Ionos for another year for my SSL certificates, or am I going to go with someone else? Most probably I'm going to go with someone else because, frankly, they cost a lot less. And I've got recommendations for those sites from other people that I know. It's a hard decision. And the thing is that because I have other expenses I have to take care of first, for instance, I just had to pay almost $800 for something because my emissions were messed up in New York State. You have to have they have to look at your emissions every single year. And it costs $21, but if you don't pass, then you can't register your car. And in New York State, you have to register your car every 2 years, and you have to pay for that. And if you don't have that sticker on your car, then you're not allowed to drive your car. And if you are, then you're going to get a big fine and whatever. So I still had to pay for that, which now I've paid for. But still, I have to make this decision. And I've done a lot of research. I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to go with, but what I'm going to say is that if you have more than one property, then the thing you really want to make sure you get is all the SSL certificates for free. Like I said, unless you've got something where you're really worried about proprietary, you're a big business or whatever, there's no sense in paying for that. There's different degrees of SSL certificates. I'm not getting into that, but I had to do some research. So I'm going to make that change. I'm probably going to make that change around the beginning of July. Let them move everything over so that I don't have to do it. And move on with life, because I'm just sharing is the most fun. Syracuse Wiki is local. And I had a couple of local things that I would have loved to have written about, but I couldn't. And my other one, it's out there. But once I have all my properties, I'm going to feel like, wow, this is just so cool. Now, those are what we call the paid properties. This is just real quick because I mentioned I have 2 YouTube channels. Obviously, you don't pay for those. But because they talk, for the most part, about different things, I want to have those. I'm on Facebook. I was one of those early adopters way back when. I was able to get on there because I had an email address from my university that I graduated from in 1981. And then I found out later on that there were some people who found other ways to be able to get on there. But that's, what took me on there. So I'm on Facebook. I can't be searched. The only way you can find me is if we're connected to the same person and you decide, hey, I'll send a friend request and see how that works. LinkedIn, I was one of the early people on LinkedIn. And back then, it was totally different than it is now. I am not a big fan of LinkedIn. I will still promote articles on there, but I'm not a big fan of that. So I'm not there all that often. I'm on Instagram because when I started doing a lot more travel back in 2013 and 2014, I'm in places that I'd never been before, and I wanted to take pictures of a lot of stuff. And it was easier just to take pictures of stuff and put it on Instagram than take pictures and then have to come home and then download stuff to the computer. It was so much easier going the other way. So I did that. Then came TikTok and some of the other things, and I said, no, I don't want to do any of that. I was on Twitter. I joined Twitter in 2008. I was having fun with it. I enjoyed it. It was my favorite platform. I was connected to a whole bunch of people. I was connected to famous people who all connected with me first. Yeah. So I had some cachet. I enjoyed that. But I knew the mess that was coming when Muskie, yeah, that's what I call him, when he decided he was going to buy it. And I just knew up to the end. I said, if he buys it, it's going to turn into a mess. And the day he buys it, I'm going to leave. The day he bought it, I closed my account. So I wasn't doing that anymore. But I still wanted to be able to interact with people here and there. So now I'm on Threads. And the thing is that you have to decide way in advance if you're ready to talk with other people that you don't know about certain subjects. You start to find out that there's subjects you care about, but there's subjects that other people care about. They care about way more than you, to the point where you're thinking, okay, that's a little extreme. I think you're a little extreme, but you don't want to say that. But you say things in a way that they don't like the way you said it. Even if you're supporting them, they don't like that. And you have to make a decision. Okay, do I want to be here? If I do, how do I want to address it? Well, you know what? You just let them say what they want to say. You block people, you move on. That's one of the best things about Threads. And I have 150 people who I'm connected to, who I follow, or who are following me, I guess I should say. What am I following? I think I'm following something like 70 or 80 people, but I see tons of other people. And it's just one of those kind of things where you need to be sure that you want to be online, because I know a lot of people who've left Facebook over the last few years, especially after that last presidential election, because either they weren't seeing what they wanted to see, or they felt that people were piling onto them, and that's for both parties. So it wasn't just, people voting, hating on them because they supported this guy or this guy. It was just one of those kind of things where if a lot of the people you were connected to were for someone else, you felt like you were being piled on. You didn't want any part of that anymore. And it's just one of those kind of things. And now I'm back to the original question, as I just hit 30 minutes, which I didn't expect. Are you ready to make the tough decisions when it's time? And this is about web presence. It carries over into other stuff also, but web presence, because web presence will take up a lot of your time. It may take up some of your money. And you have to decide if you're ready for it. Now, if you got the money, if you can pay someone else, then at least maybe you have the money to pay someone else to handle all of that, which I also used to do back in the day, but that wasn't my properties. It was just, they were paying me to do it. I enjoyed it. Whew. Got here to the end. I don't know how many people are going to watch this. I don't even know if anyone's going to watch it, but it's out there. I've given my set of information. What do y'all think? Y'all let me know. My name is Mitch Mitchell. I'll talk with y'all again.